Hi, I'm Phil Bachand, and this is On-Farm Recharge University. Topography is the elevational difference of a field, and topography is really the first consideration when you're implementing OFR. Topography governs ponding in a field. The more slope you have across the field, the more fall you get across the field, and the more difficult it is to create ponding on that field. The more level the site, the easier it will be to implement OFR. So if you know the topography of your field, you're able to decide how you want to implement OFR and what actions you might need to take. And those actions are essentially driven to allow you to have more equal flood coverage across your field. Depending on if your field is relatively shallow slope, you may not need to do very much. For instance, this alfalfa field is pretty level, and you would not need to do very much to get flooding across this field. But for more steep fields, you may decide to separate the field into checks. So a check is a term that's been applied primarily to things like rice, where they have a large field, they want shallow flooding across the field, and so they divide the field up along contours to create subfields, and those subfields are called checks. So a check is essentially just a smaller field created within a larger field. And it's delineated by the creation of these small check berms. And those are easy to build because you just mound dirt up using a tractor. Now if you want a more permanent berm or a bigger berm, then you have to get into having excavators or scrapers or things like that. If you have slope across the tree aisle, you can lay out pipe or silt fences between the trees. We conducted a study on pecans. We laid out PVC pipe and we laid out silt fences in those orchards. They were out in a day or two, then they were pulled up intermittently during the season when they had to do tractor work and laid back out. Overall, it was a fairly easy activity. Vineyards, you tend to have rows, and you can decide, well, every 10th row is a check. So there's ways of applying this approach across all crops, whether or not they're an open row crop like this, or they're an orchard or a vineyard.